I am so sorry, but yes, we're invoking the kick-out clause, and you've got 24 hours, according to our contract. Bye. That makes me feel really bad. But what you've just witnessed is the invocation of me for my seller invoking the kick-out clause. Don't know what that means? If you're buying and selling homes here in the Nashville, Tennessee area, you've got to understand the kick-out clause. Let's go in and talk about it. What is that kick-out clause in real estate? A kick-out clause allows a buyer to buy a piece of property maybe before their home in another state is sold and closed, before they have the money. But it gives them the possibility of maybe buying it. It also gives the seller the right to back out of an already agreed upon contract. That's why it's so important to understand, to know how to use it to your benefit. Thanks for joining me. I'm Susan Thetford. I'm a realtor with Parks Properties here in the Nashville area and a lifelong Nashvillian. Here on this channel, you'll find all things about Nashville, real estate, our lifestyle. You just never know what you're gonna find. We're talking about real estate, we're talking about the parks, we're talking about the schools, all the things that might be of interest to you. So I invite you, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, smash that bell so you don't miss a thing. I do a new video every single week. So that sounds like it might be kind of tricky. How can a seller back out of an accepted offer? The contract has to be written correctly in the first place. How can a buyer buy a piece of property if they need a loan and their home isn't sold in another state? They can if the offer is written correctly and everybody understands what's happening and what they're offering. So let's get into it. Let's take a real world scenario that happens here in Nashville area quite often, because we are a market where there's lots of people buying properties or trying to buy properties every single day, with over 100 people a day moving to our area in the last 2 years. It's a hot market and very competitive. What we're seeing a lot of is people coming from maybe California and Dallas, Fort Worth, coming from different areas where they've actually sold their homes already and they're walking in with cash. We're also seeing people who are moving here but their homes are not sold. Or maybe they live here in the Nashville area and want to upsize or downsize. Right size is what I like to call it. And their home isn't sold. How can a 24-hour or 48-hour kick-out clause help you? Here's what it looks like. Perfect house comes on the market. Buyer number one from Dallas-Fort Worth has not sold their home yet. Buyer number one from Dallas makes an offer to perfect home that is subject to the sale and closing of their home in Dallas. That offer is written and negotiated, offered to the seller. The seller says, okay, we'll accept this. They may go back and forth several times, but they add what's called a kick-out clause. That kick-out clause may well say something along the lines of, we'll accept your offer, subject to us not receiving another offer that we would like to accept. Should we accept offer number 2 or 3 or 4 that we would like to accept, you will then have 24, maybe 48, maybe 72, it's all negotiable. You will have X period of time to remove all of your contingencies, go toward closing. So, okay, buyer number one is super happy and they're going to get to work selling their house in the other state. Along comes buyer number two to perfect home. And buyer number two wants to buy a perfect home. And buyer number two writes an offer with their agent and they present that to seller. Seller negotiates that contract. They negotiate it all the way through as if it's primary position, but it's not. It's in backup position. Then seller or seller's agent goes to buyer number one and says, hey, we've got another offer that we would like to accept, and now we are calling your kick-out clause time period. The clock is ticking. Buyer number one has two options. First option is to say, oh my gosh, we wish we could. I cannot relieve my contingencies, and I release you from the obligation to sell this house to me. I ask for my earnest money back, and I release you from all further obligations to sell that home to me. Buyer number two could step in position. Or buyer number one could say, okay, we accept it. I'm going to remove my contingency I accept your kick-out clause response. I remove my contingencies and I'm proceeding to closing. Now, what many people don't seem to understand, and this can cause massive problems, is that not only is that contingency on the sale and closing of their home in the other state released with that kick-out clause contingency release, all other contingencies that favored the buyer are also released. So if there was an inspection contingency or an appraisal contingency or a loan approval contingency or a pool clean out contingency or a septic, any inspection contingency or all contingencies that benefit the buyer are removed when that kick-out clause is accepted and the seller notifies the buyer and the buyer says, I'm going to go on and buy this house. And that is where I find a lot of people don't understand. All contingencies are released. And it may well be, if it was a very savvy agent who represented the seller, that they also wrote in the offer, if we invoke the kick-out clause, and if you accept it and you want to continue with the purchase of this home, you thus then put down more earnest money. They want more oomph in the game because it's not refundable. That would be what I would do. But it all depends on who I represent. So who does a kick-out clause benefit? It actually could benefit both parties. It allows the buyer, number one, to have found the home they want, to really maybe look at reducing their property to get it sold quickly. It just allows them to solidify, this is what I want, and really work hard to get that other property sold. It also has a bit of a benefit to the buyer, number one, because many agents won't show a home with a kick-out clause because, think of it, it's psychologically really tough on your buyer. If I represent a buyer and we love a home and that home has a contingency on it, we still have to negotiate an entire offer. We still have to go through the entire process of it and may have the heartache of not getting it after waiting another 24 or 48 hours. We may have the heartache of not getting that. So a lot of agents don't want to put their buyers through that. Each situation is different. And that kick-out clause is so important for both sides of any transaction to understand every single step of it, what it means and what it infers through all those negotiations. And it's all in writing. So as you can see, a kick-out clause can be super complicated and offers benefits to both the buyer and the seller. I'm often asked, can a seller get out of a contract that they have accepted? That's one of the ways. If you want to know some others, stay tuned. So if you're interested in knowing about a whole lot of other jargon that we use on a regular basis, you might want to check out that video. If you're considering moving to Nashville, you really should check out my relocation guide. In that I talk about schools, lifestyles, parks, all the things that make Nashville be the it city of today. I'd love to get you that information so that you can make informed decisions for yourself. And again, subscribe to this channel for all things Nashville and real estate. I look forward to seeing you again next week.